The Royal Commission into Financial Institutions in Australia uncovered some terrible practices and unethical behaviour by banks. One key issue raised by the Commission was reward systems in banks that were perverse because they encourage banks not to work in the best interest of the customer. Following a review of remuneration practices, the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority released a draft standard aimed at changing reward systems in banks. Some of the key objectives of the proposed standard include an explicit focus on non-financial risk management, prescribed remuneration deferral periods, that boards must approve and actively oversee remuneration policies for all employees, and a maximum 50% for financial metrics in remuneration packages. As we can see, this is a reactive approach to reward systems to try and reduce the instances of poor behaviour. How can banks also move proactively to fix their reward systems as they implement strategy? Firstly, an organisation's reward system should reflect its desired values and behaviours. A financial institution should have risk management as a core behaviour, both for customers and internally. But measuring risk is about behaviour as much as risk rating. KPIs should reflect outcomes, but also the way those outcomes are pursued. Historically, reward systems have been about driving higher financial performance for an organisation. But by not addressing behaviour, it is left up to the employee to decide their moral and ethical boundaries. Unfortunately, as humans, we too easily justify a course of action to achieve a desired outcome, especially when it involves monetary benefits. But finding a balance when setting KPIs in strategy implementation requires skill and commitment. If a bank wants to implement a market expansion strategy, for example, into insurance products, they would include sales, number of new accounts, net profit margin, and other financial indicators on their balanced scorecard to monitor whether their strategy is succeeding. But when a bank employee sells financial products to a customer that benefits the bank and employees' remuneration but not the customer, there is a significant issue. A financial institution should have positive customer outcomes as a key objective. Measuring this is not straightforward, but combining qualitative measures and quantitative measures will provide insight. Another challenge for all organisations is improving the learning and development perspective on their balanced scorecard. Reward systems should be linked to encouraging and developing innovation through new product or service development. So, what can our banks do to deliver improved non-financial performance and better link reward systems with KPIs? Potential KPIs they could implement include customer satisfaction outcomes, adherence to ethical practices, new product development, increased employee engagement, understanding and compliance with financial regulations, putting corrective actions in place. Within these categories, there are various indicators an organisation can use, and some of these can be linked directly to remuneration. To recap, reward systems are closely linked to strategy implementation and must be intrinsically linked to an organisation's values. Management needs to motivate and reward people who perform well in implementing strategy. But financial targets alone are not enough. Organisations should use non-financial indicators linked to remuneration to help set minimum behaviours. There is a view that banks will not change, that the only measures that work to increase shareholder value are financial and strongly linked to remuneration. However, the fallout from the Royal Commission shows us that poor reward systems and ineffective KPIs do affect long-term outcomes for organisations. In superannuation alone, billions of dollars have been withdrawn from retail super funds run by banks and put into non-profit mutual funds. Digital banks are on the way to disrupt the industry further. In the end, though, it is consumers that will decide whether banks will improve their behaviour, and we should recognise that reward systems are closely linked to how they treat us as customers.